It's my pleasure. No. It's my pleasure. No, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. You guys go to Chick-fil-A? It's always my pleasure, isn't it? I love it when they say my pleasure. And I think the only reason I love when they say my pleasure, because now there's, well, to me anyways, they're not saying my pleasure anymore. They don't need to say thank you. That happened this morning. Excuse me. So I go to Chick-fil-A. I just noticed there's a trend of, they're not saying my pleasure. And I get my meal. She looked upset. She wasn't smiling. She must have had a bad day. Could have been me. I'm not sure. I don't know. It started in October. We were going, or September? No, October. I was taking Phoenix College down to Prescott to play Yavapai, and we decided to go to a Chick-fil-A we haven't been to before. It's kind of like, a tough area to get into. And I brought my whole team, and I got in an argument a little bit about having them use multiple registers. Typically, we only use Chick-fil-A on the way Arizona Western when we go to Yuma. We'll use that. It's always fast. It's always quick. They always use multiple registers. And then at this one, it was like only one, and I was getting so annoyed that they only used one. So I'm sure they could tell I was annoyed. I'm like, this is just not how it works. And anyways, I'm like, it took forever. I was obviously upset, but I got to do better about controlling my anger as far as letting people know that I'm upset. But, after it was done and I spent, $200+ on meals over there, she just gave me my receipt. And I go, my pleasure. She didn't say anything like, my pleasure. I wanted them to say my pleasure because I was annoyed. I was ticked. Just say my pleasure. Okay? I said, thank you. You respond, my pleasure. Happened again this morning. And I didn't respond. I'm like, what is going on? I had my daughter with me. I'm like, what? Why are they stopping to say my pleasure? What's going on? I need them to say my pleasure. Why? I don't know. Makes me feel a little bit better about myself. My day goes much better. So if you work for Chick-fil-A, you Chick-fil-A employees, say my pleasure. I get it's probably a suggestion, but say it. It makes our day. Us Chick-fil-A eaters, we love your food. Just my pleasure. Is that too much to ask? The communication must happen. So speaking of communication, my high school team, I have a game tonight against Centennial High School with Millennium High School, and we are doing a heavy focus on how we communicate, and we're trying to be careful on how we communicate. We only want to communicate directions of what's going on at that moment. Whether you're stepping, you're dropping, you're double teaming, finding that pass, whatever it may be, the communication needs to be specific to the task at hand, but never after the fact. So if someone makes a mistake, makes a wrong run, we don't harp on it. We don't even talk about it because the game is in play. Now, when the play is dead, then they can communicate. So if we have an injury timeout, substitution timeout, the ball's out of play, and we have time, we want them then to communicate, hey, you need to make that near post run when we're crossing the ball from the end line. Stuff like that. So the communication is very important. And then how we say it, how we communicate, make sure everyone feels okay. Because if the communication is negative and after the fact, then the brain kind of stops thinking. You just kind of think about screw you, no one wants to be reminded of a mistake that they did. They don't. I don't. They don't. It doesn't serve a purpose. Now we can deal with it the next day. We can deal with it at practice. We can have discussion then. But when we're in a game situation, we need to make sure the communication is at a high level of intelligence. It needs to happen. Information needs to happen during the situation given. So anytime we're given a situation where we're being counterattacked or we're in an attacking position and we're doing specific runs that have to be made, give the information then, but not after. Oh, you should have made that run. Genesis, you should have made that run. You know, why'd you dive in? We're not supposed to dive in. We're not going to be like that. We need to be careful. The same thing goes for Chick-fil-A. It's my pleasure. It is your pleasure. I went Chick-fil-A this morning and it was just packed. I'm like, does anyone go to work? Anyone? No. I'm sick, so that's why I didn't go. Anyways, yeah, it's crazy to see the amount of people that go to Chick-fil-A because the food is ridiculously good. Well, the ones I go to, Bruce Plazer, the owner of the Chick-fil-A's I go to, are legit. Those are run like machines, except now I don't see them that much, and then my pleasures are gone. It's disappointing. It is my pleasure to serve you during this podcast. Goodbye.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.